to order at 6:30. Chair Hartman. Here. Commissioner Guy.
Here.
Present. Mr. Larson. Agenda is presented as only revisions, suggestions. Okay. I'm going off. I don't know what to say. So, do I just say agenda is approved or? Motion.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I don't think we approve agendas and workshops. We're just moving down.
So agenda is budget review. Just going straight to discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Alrighty. So I sent out the updated version on Friday evening with, I think it was 10 pages of notes. And then this afternoon, I sent out an email with 3 adjustments that came to us later in the day today. Were you guys all able to review that email?
Yes.
Today, but
So today's additions, we got feedback from the insurance with an actual quote. It was lower than we had anticipated, 138,000 and some change instead of 150,000. So that adjustment has been made. Shane was able to give us feedback on a mowing option of purchasing a mower, and the baseball club is continuing to do the mowing next year. So that was put in under Clover Valley Small Tools and Equipment. And then Jay had forgotten to reduce the owl down to the 1,200. So I made that adjustment today as well.
Email said 120. Is it 1,200 or 120?
1,200. I missed a 0.
That's fine. I'm sorry.
Make sure that we are reviewing things before they go out. We have right information every single time. There's something every time. I want to try to limit that as much as we can. So why would a mower be small tools?
So it's small tools slash equipment.
So it's equipment.
So hammers and tractors going the same way.
Clover Valley Park does not currently have a differentiation for 2. We can definitely create a differentiation, but in its current format, it does.
Like the map. School versus Clover Valley and kind of have the same standards. What is the board? The same one.
347.
Do you have a comparator for the pools?
So for the
Yes, that's right.
yeah, for the tool or for the pool, it is 247. I believe is small tools and equipment. No, I'm sorry. It is equipment purchase is 242, which is separate, and then there is small tools and equipment line 260. So for the pool side, it has at some point been split into the 2.
And small tools slash equipment.
I think at some point somebody wanted to differentiate a large purchase and that equipment was added.
Okay.
Most of the time, anything that has been purchased in the last 5 years, I would say has gone into the small tools and equipment. I think the slide initially went into that main equipment one.
Okay. And the slide was put in 2022, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay.
So how does that grass get cut now? With what equipment?
So we were using Brightwater, which was a contracted service. And then this year the Clover Valley baseball user group, decided to do it for us in lieu of us spending that money towards Brightwater to repurchase, or not repurchase, but purchase a conditioner for the field. And so the board approved that. So that's why we made that switch. And then talking with them, Shane talked with Tyson on Saturday, and Tyson said that he would continue to do it if we bought them a better mower. So they were using their own equipment essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
There's the wear and tear on their mower, but also the trailer in it to them from the.
That's a question about that. So we were talking about a Toro grandstand board. That's a landscape level
Mhm.
deal, right? Is
Yeah,
that,
and
is
I
that
was-
really necessary or once a week?
What I was telling Jay, I think, say in a year and a half or say in 2 years, they don't want to do this anymore. And we bring it in. Much more efficient, the labor that it would save for our person would pay for itself very promptly.
I would agree with you, but I don't know that we need a landscaper, a professional landscaper level.
Tyson said they were more than willing to do it with, say, a residential, Xmark or something.
So my thought was more like an upgraded residential.
Yeah, and I had
There's
mentioned
gonna be a
that, I
massive
had mentioned to
difference.
Jay, I mean, if you guys want at 6,500 instead of 13, I think that's more than reasonable.
Just because it's gonna be used for one purpose and not a
Yeah.
daily.
Absolutely. And with the grandstand, if the district in a year or two, the Clover Valley group's not doing the mowing. And say at some point the city doesn't want to do the mowing, and we were doing both, but a residential version's fine. And
Yeah, I think there's a minimal difference in the speed.
I think
I
so.
would definitely probably say that commercial one's gonna have some longevity on it.
And I think the biggest difference I've noticed between the two isn't even speed. Commercial ones can handle mulching, damp grass in the northwest, the residential ones,
Yeah.
and it's been good now. What they mowed it with this last year was residential. Okay.
I would be more comfortable with something about that than that.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. I knew you guys might end up there too.
So 6,500. That'll bring that line down to 7,100.
That's good.
I just felt more.
And that's why I put the exact model.
I
of the mower in
appreciate
there.
that, actually.
I was hoping that it wasn't lost there, but.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to mow a church. Quarter of that. And we have probably more acres. But I do recognize that there's some longevity.
I think I'm for the 48-inch bad boy, or there's stuff out there.
Moving back to the equipment versus open equipment. I am of the feeling that since the slide has been purchased and we haven't used that equipment line since. I guess we used it a little bit in 2023. What was in there?
What number?
I'm 242, line item 242 for the pool. And that's that conversation on, as the difference between 242 and 260.
That was the 26 bidder.
And the 242. No, here's one, two.
No, that was for the
In
slide.
2023.
Yeah. Yeah. In 2023.
Take it out.
It would be- I mean, people love it, but I don't think 50 grand.
I wonder if we should change the name of that line item to like special equipment to help differentiate between like regular small tools and equipment versus line item like purchases.
So one of the things we added for 2024 is the capital expense line within this budget. And now those two items both went on in that capital.
Okay. We just take out that equipment line then.
Yeah.
Well, no, I know for purpose, but like,
Yeah.
for future spending.
But I have
We
it,
don't
well,
use line
yeah,
item.
if you notice, it's
242.
gray as in we're not actively using it.
Okay, so
So
I was
that-
wondering why that was a different color.
Yeah, I did not put a note for that.
Okay.
In my head, it was self-explanatory. In my head, it was self-explanatory.
Yeah, no, I did the same thing at work today where someone was like, I didn't see a key for this spreadsheet you made. And I was like, I didn't think anybody needed to see a key for it, but okay. All right.
And we also had a discussion about, I don't think the board has ever defined what they consider capital compared to what they consider an equipment purchase. And so we had some back and forth discussion about that. So that's probably something that I'll be putting to the board. How would you like to define it? Everybody, there's generally, if it's attached to the building and has a certain longevity, it's considered capital. But then it made our finance person go, really? Is that capital or is it? And so I think if the board sets it, then it's a clear direction.
Well, and there are certain things in practice that, like the slide is a great example. Literally every screw, bolt, nut purchase for that should have credited to our capital. But when you have a receipt come through that is for mixed purchase items, oftentimes those will end up getting put into the maintenance and repair line because like even you won't know always, if I purchased 100 screws today, 10 of them are going to get used for that.
Yeah.
10 of them are going to get used over here.
Right.
But then how much do we end up getting for that?
I think 40, we got $5,000 from Better Homes and Garden. And then I think it was 42 and some odd number for the slide.
The local grant was 37,384 and 42
30 for the,
for the study.
oh, and then with the addition of the 5K. Okay.
I think just ultimately, like, just looking at it, like I said, a hammer and a lawnmower coming out of the same line, just doesn't really.
I think traditionally too, because they never spent any money out there, that some of the costs that are coming up now, it's like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't something we planned, but that was something you guys planned. But working together, we can make that work. And if the Springbrook accounting software is approved, maybe then we can have more defined what goes in this line and what doesn't. Springbrook is the accounting software that's made specifically for Washington and Oregon. I didn't know if you were looking at me because you were like, Springbrook.
Yeah,
Yes.
along with our.
Yes.
Too, but like,
It's almost like every single line item has
Yeah.
its own category. Just because we're gonna buy something doesn't mean it needs its own, right? Like, for real, I know this is a little bit out there, but are we even dividing up minors purchases?
So
Everything is accounted for, but
I think it helped board members once upon a time understand the real costs of things to break it down this completely.
it did have to be watered down.
and some of the divisions are because when we do the annual report for the auditor, we have to divide general perks expenses from pool expense, right? So that's why some of those things you see duplicated on each side. My guess is that assuming Springbrook is approved as we transition to that, you probably will see a higher level view. And then if you guys want a more individualized breakdown, that could be provided. But I think as a standard, it'll probably move them more as it does on that report.
I think minor purchases was a bad example for me to say to consolidate. Actually, I would honestly move a lot of these things out of minor purchases into other categories. Still put minor purchases with single item.
Some of it too is broken up, so it's easy for, because when Julie has to pull for the annual report, she's got to pull based on what they tell her to pull for that annual report. And so having it broke down a little bit allows her to do that easier.
I guess my thought along this line, and I'm focusing on minor purchases right now, and I'm not asking anything to be changed. I'm just providing my interpretation or my thought line here. Is I would look at a minor purchase as something that is, it came up, we have to go buy it. We need it. Not like pool chemicals, which we already have a schedule of maintenance on. Office supplies, maybe kind of half and half. Cleaning and sanitation, we should just be buying that stuff every month. It's not something that's, I don't know. I'm just talking.
And then COVID.
That was a differentiated specifically for reimbursement services.
Understand.
I was just about to say that, knowing what I know about COVID and how the funding went into that, so. However, I anticipate that line's gonna be grayed out here really soon too.
Well, it is grayed out. I just forgot to gray out the text.
Gotcha.
Don't jinx us with graying that line out.
You never know. It's partially grayed out. Okay.
Well, not, it's just an example
Why
of why we need a.
Financially, we're never getting that.
Because we're
So
manipulating
it's fine.
this.
It's so fine.
The items that had been underperforming, I put notes on the front of the notes pages. In the meeting in the last workshop, we had discussed using an average and then adding for the remaining months of the year and adding 10% to that. I initially ran those numbers and I looked at it, and knowing that a lot of those months used an average are higher revenue months, the number was coming up higher than I really was comfortable with. I wanted to be very conservative, so I quickly entered the rest of all of our October stuff, verified that information, and went with 10% from the year to date at the end of October, and have that as the projected for next year. I feel more comfortable with that. Hopefully we can blow that number out of the water for those lines, but I think it gives us.
It's a long discussion between us.
Yeah, and I agree with that approach. Given that this is your work day to day, if you feel like, well, we're not gonna make it there, I'd rather you be conservative than go against your gut
And
feeling.
especially with things like swim lessons, where I know that we always fall off in the fall. And we initially had not planned on a December session, so we haven't heavily advertised that at this point. I just, and winter is so topsy-turvy and holidays and people in and out that I don't like to project revenue and be really stuck to that for the last couple months of the year.
Let's go.
The what?
Bank balances, 2 and 3.
Projected M and O and the,
It was the projected opening, like the January balance and then the reserve.
the reserve. That's it. That's a. Did we have that in here?
We did before, and
I can't remember now. Because last year was the first year I did it, I think.
and it was
Oh.
and I think that was because we had a directive to transfer a certain amount over, so we reflected that there,
Yeah.
but we don't have that currently, so it's not listed here at this time.
That goes back to that conversation I had been trying to get us to do reserve for a long time, but up until
Has
last year.
nothing to do with that. I know specifically in the last meetings when we talked about it, where the names were there, I said it was important for us to be able to see our financial position. And wanted those numbers filled in. Now the lines are gone.
But our financial position is, I guess I'm confused. I thought you were specifically asking for where my production was for our M&O carryover. That's what I thought you were asking for.
I want to see the big picture of the district. Which is our bank balances, which was what those were without the numbers. Then I wanted the numbers and then the lines got taken out.
So 2 had been the projected January bank balance. Line 3 had been the transfer out to reserve. So that would have been a number we were subtracting from that bank balance, which would have made line 4 the balance after that transfer to reserve. We don't have a projection for a transfer to reserve, so the projected M&O carryover is the same as the bank balance.
Which is this
The 573, 56, 21.
That makes sense.
If you would like us to do that, then I can go back and subtract that.
I can add it.
I just want the whole picture. That's all I wanted. I just wanted the whole picture. As we're going through and deciding a budget, I want to be able to see everything more. Once everything was adjusted on the spreadsheet, we went. So when we ended the meeting last year, or the last budget meeting that we had, without all of the lines configured, the ending notes were that because once you added those figures that were gone, we were basically going to be a wash. How did the number go?
Because at the end of the project, when you add in, so before we put in line number 4, 573.56, I think the amount of money after we did all the changes is that we would have a net ordinary income of 102 something. And so if you added that net ordinary income to this 573.856, that's where you got the 673, 605.31.
Also, we did take out the windows.
Oh, yes, and we took out the windows out of capital expense because we're gonna try to get a grant for that. But I don't have a grant lined up in terms of, like with Representative Paul, we know we're going for that. We know he's supporting that. He thinks we'll be able to get that. That's why I put that 300,000 in for that.
Okay. And did we really? I know line 10 didn't carry over. Did we go through and make sure everything else had appropriate calculations?
Line 10, the timber harvest tax.
Yeah.
We do not budget for that. It's a very small amount that we receive,
You're right.
and we never know in advance.
Sorry, you're right. I see.
But yes, we did go line by line.
Several times.
Yeah, that's where you
But
got
not-
the line by line breakdown.
I don't really have any issues with property tax grants and interest, aquatics or recreation.
Items you guys want to review?
Just had a quick question on line 52. Last week, the proposed budget had that 500 down to 472. Looks like it came all the way down to 4.
That is largely because of using the more conservative approach for those items that were underperforming.
That she talked about earlier, so like we did that.
That seemed like a hope.
If there's anything else. There.
We really looked at items that if they weren't hitting at 73 or 80%, that those were the ones that we were looking at the time. And I told her, I said, listen, if we're not even there, we need to bring that down, because what I heard you guys say at the last budget meeting to really make sure that we were averaging that out and going forward. So that's what we did across to all the lines, unless it was plus or minus 5% where we were supposed to be. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
There's a number of things that we talked about last week that we needed to. It's like this we covered that. Conservative approach, I think.
I always have operated under low estimate for income and high estimate for expenses, hoping that it shakes out in the middle.
And I'm a more code everything out and go from zero on your expenses, and we try to meet somewhere in the middle.
I did double check the formula to make sure that it is including everything in that enter for that line, and it is. Once we had entered everything in the spreadsheet, I did enter all of these proposed numbers into QuickBooks and generated a P&L from that to make sure all the formulas were matching, and they.
You guys decided earlier that
We decided it. It's got a bit of like a rundown of. To codify everything.
And we're trying to present it at the December meeting for the okay. So on 144, I'm just gonna jump right into it. What's the executive director wage? 144, when I reviewed the contract. Because how she has already.
So I guess step one is depending on what the topic is. If we go against what the previous board says, you're very quick to tell us you're not respecting. But in certain situations, specifically like this, want us to go against what the previous board said. So I understand that the contracts change. And then it's my understanding, just making sure I have this correct. So when your salary was adjusted to account for a medical insurance stipend,
Yes, because I understood it.
your wages were also increased to reflect the cut in retirement? Is that what it was? Okay,
I wasn't part of that discussion when they did it the second time, so I don't know what that reason was.
so consistently over the past several years, your increases have been well over COLA. And got the, this is an increase that's big increase. So earlier in the year, I came to bat wanting to fight for you because the way you presented it to me was that the board took away your retirement. And I see the framework there. I see what you mean. When you presented us with the back or the research on what executive directors make and stuff, what districts were those?
Tukwila, Metropolitan, Fildago, and South Whitby.
What was Fidelga's salary?
Oh. I did, I don't remember. Sorry, I'm trying to look up in my sent emails to you. Fildago 78 to 101.
Fidelga, Tukwila, and who was the last one?
South Whitby.
South Whitby has way more going on. Tukwila is a bigger population. Fidalgo would be more in line, but they have their staffing is a lot more than ours. So these are still skewed because there's never going to be a direct mirror of exactly what we are. But the truth of the matter is we are a very small operation. We have a staff of 35. And we, in my mind, we cannot keep on this trend having these salary increases that are higher. We are consistently more than doubling COLA.
I would like to argue that with what has happened in the last 4 years with the argument, she has increased expansion for this district. So looking at all the different salaries and the benefits, it's other districts, but what we've had after reviewing all 3 contracts and knowing that she was not part of that discussion, which typically the BOC doesn't involve the director in that discussion because it's for her benefit. There was some disjustice from her hiring and what her agreement was to what it is. So we went and we did our original contract stating that she would get the 7% retirement, she would get the health benefits. And then 4 months later, we revoked it. Like how does that happen? And then just recently in 2023, again, it just continued. The pay raise did go, but the benefit to really recognize an employee who does a really great job. That district compensation also needs to be understand of what has happened to the district, what we really overcome through the last few years.
So, and I don't know that this is the place to review that or what the case may be, but what I do know is we have spent a lot of time this year going over why things haven't happened over and over and over and over and over again. Consistently, we staffing, we can't do this because staffing, we can't do this because of staffing. All I've heard all year is where we haven't met expectations because of staffing.
Any industry at this moment in the last 4 years have had staff issues. It's really hard to rule out any issues of not having staffing, because the reality is either we don't have the staffing because people don't want to apply, or we just don't have qualified applicants. We also have to understand the training that needs to be put into it. So her to hire qualified staff, yes, she's gonna be picky on it. We have to consider that too. We just can't hire somebody and then
Have you looked at our open positions page?
that every other industry.
Point is, we have positions on there that have been filled since. Open.
Every single industry has the same issues. It's an ongoing
No,
issue.
that's not an ongoing issue. I can't remember her name, but our client support specialist has been hired in here since, was it May?
Came on in June.
Still an open position listed on our website. Those aren't actively being updated so that those positions can be filled.
So keep in mind also in June, also lost an administrative assistant, which added on more duties to our ongoing staff.
I don't understand why we're at a crossroads here.
So we're at the difference between is the website maintained because of open positions and her salary? Two different conversations.
Right, it needs to be about her salary, and what I'm saying is that consistently, there has been pretty significant stuff, and not one that we can maintain.
Under the line item, are benefits included?
No,
A whole different package. The compensation package be for the director.
that would be. Would consist of the retirement and the health insurance. But side note to that, I can total that for you. The client service coordinator position is not listed on the website. It's just the client service specialist position listed. And that is an ongoing open position.
Okay.
So I think it ends up being. $22,296, I believe, is the family health care amount of benefits, and then,
You say 22,296?
yes. But that's the full amount, that's not the district paying 20% for the employee and 50% for the dependent, so it would actually be less than that.
And the proposed retirement?
And then the vacation. Is
13,039.
there you go. I was trying to get to their page. So that's $60 a month. I know, right? I was almost struggle with this for a second.
I think this needs to be a more comprehensive discussion, because what we're looking at just with with the salary increase, that's over 21%. And then with the package benefits, we're looking at additional almost $41,000, $40,985. So we're looking at a $60,000 compensation package jump. That's untenable. So we have to talk about give and take and what the overall package is gonna look like and what that offer is gonna be. I can't sign off on this carte blanche $60,000 increase. It's just. It can't justify it.
So for purposes of the budget, we need some number in there as a placeholder, whatever you guys are comfortable putting in there. If it stayed at that number or any number in between where it is now and there, that doesn't guarantee her the raise. You guys would still have to approve that and her contract would have to be modified. So it is two separate things playing together. So whatever number you guys are comfortable putting in there for purposes of budget approval.
I think we did that last year because I thought that it did work with the budget. Once we approved the budget, she got her raise.
That was just COLA and
That was just
longevity.
COLA and longevity that were approved as a separate matter.
They were approved in the,
The contract should have been updated at some point, probably to reflect that.
but that goes back to that whole question. At once upon a time, I was supposed to start falling under the employee, only under the employee handbook. They only went back to the contract when they decided to change my retirement. Then they didn't update the whole contract to even mimic the handbook. Even though they used the handbook as, or the contract as the starting point for in terms of like vacation and how, because they earn the same vacation that I do, I earn the same that they do. So the contract only came back up into play when it was to decrease what I was already getting.
That's how I made a mistake. I believe the last 2 years, the full-time employees were eligible to have the insurance. None of us really had the 20% to cover. So at some point along the way, that was probably taken out of the budget to balance things. But it was still with Jay, myself, Julie, and Jessica when she was here. We have all been eligible for that insurance. So I wouldn't necessarily consider that a raise right now.
And I think the thing that sticks with me is that my position hasn't been at market minimum. That's and when I talked with Ross, when I talked with the other directors they couldn't believe everything that I do compared to what they do, because they feel like they don't do a whole lot compared to us. Yes, they have a lot more rec going, but they don't have a pool, or they have just a pool and no recreation. And their populations are 22,000, where our 20 to 22,000, where our population is 41,000. None of them get involved in their levy conversations. They all looked at me like, you're the second.
You for you being involved in the levy.
No, and I'm not asking that because they don't have the issues that we do in terms of getting that. But what I'm saying is when I was hired, that was what was said. We know that we can't pay you market minimum right now, but once we get back and finances get better, we want to, in the next levy cycle, bring you up to market minimum and do that. Why they did it beforehand, I don't know. I don't know why they jumped the gun. It wasn't something that I asked or ever tried to get going. Those were all conversations that happened outside of me being involved in them.
But you are making more than.
For who? For us?
For anyone. I mean, market minimum, I don't know what that would be. But you're definitely ahead of Fidago. We are way ahead of what the state asked for. And my point is that consistently the percentage has been pretty high. Like it's been consistently well over any kind of benchmark. And it's not a trend that I can see the district can be onto. Like that's. I make sense.
So for this budget, Julie, the 113 is just COLA or is it?
No, that was a number, from my initial research that, and I didn't look like to specific organizations. I looked at Glassdoor. It gave me a figure, for Park and Rec directors with 4 to 6 years experience. So I was matching that to her years of experience here. The range for that was 82 to 133 plus another 29 to $54,000 in benefits. So 113 was kind of middle of the road to that. Indeed would not let me specify for a Park and Rec director, but its base average was 101,304 with a range of 64 to 158. So again, I went kind of middle of the road for that. And then benefits for that. Oh, I don't have benefits for that from Indeed. So that's where that number had come from. And in conversation with Jay and knowing that the board historically, like when she was hired, had said, you know, we want to make this right for you in that next levy cycle. So that was just the number that went in as that.
Well, the issue is that when you include things like Glassdoor, you're getting Park and Rec director of Las Vegas.
No,
or-
this was specific to our region. I was able to put in for our region.
Even here, we have more rural. We only have 30.
As a placeholder, sure.
Yeah, as a placeholder,
But-
right?
but like I
And
said,
so
we
have a
have to have
conversation
a
about
full
the
conversation
contract.
that encompasses all of this, and so we could say, this is where we are, this is where we want to be, and how do we, it's just like when you buy anything else, it's like, you gotta look at all the total cost at the end of the day.
Right, yeah, because I'm thinking after, you know, we're coming up on it's almost $50,000 benefits package. In the 10 seconds of looking online that I did, that sounds in line with, what is around here. Like South Woodley's compensation is like, their range was 95 to 125, and Fidalgo is what, 90 to 110, is that what you said?
101, I think.
Yeah,
But he also, Friday was also his last day because he left for better opportunities, but I didn't even have him for 2 years. I've accomplished everything that the board asked me to do when they brought me on 4.5 years ago, and then some.
And I don't want you to have to defend your position here, just move on with this conversation for now.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I think this is the wrong forum for this. I think we're way off track. This should have been done months ago. And now we're all paying the price for it. We should not be sitting in a budget meeting talking about salary. That should have been done months ago. So I'm kind of over it, honestly.
So for 144, we're in an agreement to change it, revise it to 103. Is that kind of the consensus? Is that how we are moving forward?
I can't provide yes if that is the rest of the board's consensus. I support that. I don't have everything in front of me to make a decision on a salary tonight, and I won't.
Just for salary alone is an increase of 9,270, just the,
Didn't we approve COLA?
Yeah, we
what was that with the COLA?
So can we add the COLA to the 93, stick that in the number, and then revisit this?
Longevity goes.
was 5.5%.
2.35 for the minimum wage change, and then 3% for the longevity.
Let's call it 5.5 for now.
It has the same salary, and if you choose to, then when you upgrade the salary range that way.
Well, we've already approved.
That becomes 98.77.
98,770.
98,877. That will make line 144 become 4940. Line 199 becomes 4934. Or 99 becomes 4944.
That is your retirement.
But what is that? Because,
It's because it's a percentage
It's
of
because it's-
salary.
Yeah, the maximum matching is 5%, so if she contributed the maximum 5%, that would be the district responsibility.
oh, yeah.
And then line 205 goes from 4346 down to 3803. That one is the sick pay, and that's based on 80 hours use over the course of the year. 214. And 214 becomes 11,410. And that's the vacation, and that's based on 6 weeks use of vacation. It'll make a nominal difference in the overall payroll taxes. Overall, probably not enough to even bother this thing.
But I would also like to revisit with the board. I'm not comfortable really. Business is 75 employees. I do not. 50? Whatever the three is. All right, 50.
75 was my goal. That was the
Yes.
goal that the board had given me 2 years ago to hit, was 75 employees.
So the state of Washington's large business qualification is 50 employees.
Yes.
Okay, we have 35 employees.
We typically cover though around 50, right there.
Okay, but right now we have 35 employees and the benchmark is 50.
Yeah.
Correct, okay. Do we really want to willfully, like, what do we want to do with that? Because we pay out more benefits as a large business than we do as a small business. We're not even meeting that requirement.
And I think, just from what I've and stuff, with all the programs, it might be really hard to stand it up. If it-
I don't know if it's summertime, what is our average for employees?
Last time we did the average, it was 54.
And I would suspect with the hiring we have coming up between now and the end of the year that by mid-December.
We're trying to have a lifeguard class to replenish our lifeguards.
I'm
Because
sure
we
our
haven't been-
hiring's gonna be a little easier.
Yes.
Okay,
A side note that doesn't have to do with the budget, it was awesome talking to that Tukwila. Because him and I were trained by the same Denver YMCA.
That's neat. A cute circle.
Well, but whenever you talk to another exec, then you kind of have a benchmark for what you're doing.
Yeah.
It just felt like, oh,
Yeah,
the training worked for both of us.
yeah, that's really cool. Julie, that medical line, 231, is that the proposed, like, how much we would be spending on health insurance for full-time employees?
That I calculated, what's the number? Sorry.
231.
231.
That's a question.
So 231, that assumes 80% for the employee and 50% for dependents. Using 4 staff with dependents and 1 with no dependents. And that is the actual calculation, based on those premium numbers from the first page of that packet.
Can you talk to me about, do you guys use medical insurance? Do you guys have it? You guys bought into a plan? Like,
I did when I first got here and then I just didn't sustain it after that.
okay. And is it because it was not, it's because it was unaffordable, correct?
Well, and then that's too, at a certain salary percentage, you don't get breaks anymore with the state. So I think I was paying 1,800 out of pocket.
So that's 67,970 is with the 80-20 split.
Yes.
That's for 4 people.
That's for 4 full-time with dependents and 1 full-time with dependents.
I think our bigger goal here as a board should be looking at sustainable access to healthcare. And not putting something in our budget that they can't afford, so we're not paying for it. And I think that's gonna create longevity.
I believe that presently is where we would be at. I mean, like Jane said earlier, healthcare was actually approved with a policy in place, and I personally don't need it, but the other staff here at the time that did need it could not afford it as it was.
So with the 80-20 for 5 employees, that's what this number is. Okay. Yeah. For the health cover.
Yeah, let's say 100% for the employee, and like 50% for dependents.
So 2,500 times 5. So if you did 2296 times 5, that would be roughly your monthly.
But is that how this insurance?
Using that calculation, that brings it.
Is
Yeah.
that about right, Julie?
I believe so, yes, looking at these numbers here.
That may be the best thing you could do to replace the maintenance tank. That might
Health
really help
insurance.
entice somebody.
So it's gonna do the maintenance on top of, instead of offering health insurance.
You could also look at what it would look like to do 100% for employee and 50 or 60% for dependents.
Yeah, that's what I said, 100
I-
for employee, 50 for
And
dependents.
even when I first started here, that is how healthcare was set up here. And then when the levy bill, when we closed, healthcare just kind of completely went away, and the reintroduction, it's
Well, there'll have to be another one of those. This number here is a placeholder for this. Say, in mind.
Any other line items we need to review?
Yep, that I had from last time, answered, it needs to find out.
Actually, since I do have Shane here, it's gonna bring us up though.
You only have for 2
Apparently,
days.
it's 4 days. Done. So this was just brought up in the previous budget reviews. Number 354, the Valley Health Bill, $13,000. And Britt and I were the only ones in the last budget review. By last year's budget was 3645, and now it's back to 10. Discussion about.
Did that money get moved around because I haven't switched up to mowing?
it was because when we were doing the budget adjustment for this year, I had asked you if you knew of any other projects planned out there for this year, and you did not, so we reduced it pretty much to the year to date.
I think what happened on some things is so I think you go back to like May or June timeframe and the money that was rolling in was like, holy smokes, this is gonna. Rolled in, it was already completed, the scheduled project, so it was paving, et cetera. I think there was a paving project that got put out there in a field.
For the two is our agreement kind of with them for maintenance.
Yes, they've been incredible.
And Brett, couldn't remember what the exact reason was for the painting, but Shane reminded me, we spent the painting money on a new vacuum. Because the vacuum was about $5,000, so, and I forgot, and he goes, you even made me write a note on the purchase order.
She-
I was just so proud of myself because I got you guys to agree.
She says
I
that,
thought it was funny.
but it was an underwater robotic vacuum that works for us for about 4 hours a day. And it was scheduled on the capital to be replaced in 2025. So it wasn't totally shocking that it flew up. It was just irritating that it didn't wait 6 more months.
Yeah. So I have a question. So when we had the conversation last year, this wall,
Yes.
it said that this was structurally unsound.
It
It
made it bad.
get it changed.
Spent more years and years and years without paint, but I mean, if I had input on like a 30, 60, 90, 180, the new person, that would certainly be on the 180 days of please get that wall painted.
So that's my question. So that's how that happened, because the overall paint was crazy. It was crazy expensive, something that we couldn't.
I think it was 75.
Yeah, and then if there was one wall that structurally needed it, which where there was, we approved that to be able to kind of start going along. Because that one's gonna need more maintenance more frequently, because of the suds. And then whereas that one over there,
South
See, that-
facing walls in Oak Harbor just get pummeled with the wind off the water.
Yeah.
It looks great, like it's fine.
Down to bare paint, other than the 900 places that it got graffitied before the cameras.
so who would be training the new maintenance?
Ideally, they would be pretty skilled already.
Jay's scope of practice. Apologies.
You don't know it, I could tell you I've never trained a maintenance person before, they come in pretty well. And then they do what we all do, right? Hey, what did you do with this?
So
You're gonna be available for that.
We already told them.
So when I started here, I had previously maintained a pool and the building was falling down. So whoever would hire, they better.
And the
Is there
actually
anything
knows
I-
this. I know some people that should have them.
I'm just picturing your Halloween costume.
I love it.
I know some people that should have.
Is there any other comments? What's our next steps for this budget?
So Julie, I think you were making the changes as we
I
went.
made the changes as we went. And I close this out and email it out to you all really quickly so that you'll have it for final review before Thursday's meeting.
Excellent.
And then I will update, I sent you guys the resolution without the 2 numbers in it, but I will update it with those 2 numbers. I'll also update the levy certificate and send it off to the assessor's office to review just before you approve on Thursday.
52.95, my new favorite number,
Sure is.
A good number, 62.5.
52.95. We were at 63%
Yeah.
before that, and
Yeah.
this bastard said, take that little bit
Yeah.
away from us.
Yeah.
63, that's just like a nice even
Yeah,
number.
It was 181 yes votes to 122 no votes that day. And I was like, are you kidding me?
One more yes vote, we've been stable at 63. Jesus.
So that was our only action item, right? Just Julie to send updated budget to you.
I had it, I think.
So what board member?
Change
won the
all
win?
equipment down to 71K, purchase mower for 6,500 or less. Define capital purchase.
What was my final guess?
62.5, 62.6.
I can
Can't
tell you
remember
it's
what I
not in the store. Like,
6 and 6.
Can't remember what mine was, but it's. Yeah, I think it was
Not to choose
61.
62.
There's three other people already.
Oh, I think, yeah, because Brett and I chose 60.
Jay, you said budget to find capital purchase. What was the third one?
So the first one had a two-part, change small equipment down to 7,100, only purchase a mower for 6,500 or less.
Julie already adjusted the budget line item, so.
Check in.
Final board comment. Commissioner Guy,
I have lots of comments. Honestly, I kind of alluded to it a few minutes ago, but this is really not the way to do this. I think going into 2025, whoever's leading us next year, we need to basically reinstitute the budget committee, and too much in this budget to be looking at it at the 9th hour.
We started at the 9th hour.
I know.
Yeah.
But this, I mean, we need to talk about salaries, we need to talk about benefits, we need to talk about rates when the program committee finishes up with that. I would say that the budget committee should be reinstituted, whoever that chair may be next year. That would be my recommendation. Should never come to a budget meeting in this position again. That's all I have to say about that.
Where is? I want to understand why we had a full meeting going through user funded, levy funded, split funded, and we still have not seen the results of that.
Or I've seen the results, we gave it to you at the meeting and we put it in the writing. Standing rules that have meeting. We talked about it several times, actually. What's levy funded and what's not.
Oh,
Expecting it to be here applied to the budget.
so we had that,
Yeah.
like detailed.
In July.
We had a meeting decided item by item, right?
September.
I wasn't here. Got July.
You were there.
Yeah, you were the person, yeah.
When I tortured you all going line by line. Or what
It
you
was,
wanted.
I think it was a workshop, October 14th workshop, maybe.
Misunderstanding what
It
it
was October
I
14th.
thought we were talking about definitions, defining what is what. Oh,
So October 14th, we went line item by line item, saying levy or not.
that is, okay, now I know what you're talking about, yes.
So normally it's
That's
not,
what I was expecting to.
normally it's not at the last minute. Normally we have that line by line meeting in October.
I wasn't really addressing to you guys, it was more
Oh,
like,
sorry.
we need to come up with a schedule and make sure that we are. Talking to us, we tell you what
I
you want.
usually do have a budget calendar.
The board came together with Julie Malang and we by line item deciding what pieces of every single thing we do would be levy funded, user funded, or split funded. I was expecting to see that in the budget. So we could steer where things were going. What happened?
So Julie used that to create different types of formulas for the program committee to look at, which they reviewed today. And they picked one formula for us to go with and then asked us to give them some preliminary programs and how those programs would be affected. And then they present, if they like what that looks like at the next program committee meeting, plan to give it to you guys to approve or not approve in the December meeting.
So what I was expecting was to see, okay, this is the levy amount. This is what you guys said that should pay for. Are you over? Are you under? Or that's what I was looking for.
I think Julie's goal is something she's always wanted to have the board do to help her build the formula that helps us build the prices. If you want to see that broken out in a different way, I think that we would need to know like what kind of metric that would look like under, like, is it an Excel form? Is it? Because I don't think, are you getting a clear idea of where you would do this in the budget? Other than in the revenue?
Doesn't that already reflect in the revenue though?
Overall, yes, but the
That's
line
not
by
broken down.
line breakdown.
Because normally what you would get for October, like in October, would be the budget workbooks that we create, which is, I think, Britt, that's probably why you're used to seeing it. We do all of these for every single program that we do. And then you would see, oh, this is the formula, this is how we broke it up to come up with the cost for the lane hour. And then this is how we applied it to every program to build that revenue. We didn't have those worksheets to base off of. So we had to go a different route, which was taking for the programs that were either over or under by 5% of where they should have been in the budget line based on what we budgeted. We took the average of the year to get next year's number, which isn't typically how we do it. We typically do it through these, but they're not built yet.
Okay, so I think overall, like, if the board decided that the levy was paying out $3 million and we were actually getting $1.3 million, hey, y'all, you're off base and we need to adjust. That's what I was thinking was going to happen.
When you say 1.3 million, are you talking about from taxes or revenue overall?
Levy.
So that really amount doesn't change after we get that amount from the assessor's office. Like the only reason that it would hugely hit us is if people didn't pay their, and it would have to be a large amount of people for us not to hit that. So
What I'm saying is we were doing this off the fly. We don't know what those numbers we designated for the levy to be. We don't know what that total was. We could have spending that was my example. We could have said that we could have designated $3 million to the levy, but that's not the amount that we're getting. So we would need to come back to the table and readjust that. That's what I was looking for.
So the totals of all those numbers. So if you said column A was getting 50% from the levy, does that amount get covered by the levy? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, we would have to reconfigure what percentages were being allocated from the levy. If we had significantly over budgeted the levy, we need to see where that is and how that would adjust or need to adjust. That would play a crucial role in the budget meeting.
Which I think would be going back, moving forward, right? What Commissioner Ryan was saying is that if we had the budget committee do that, 2025 would be easy to track that progress with this new levy. Going backwards, if that was what you were requesting for this budget, that should have been kind of discussed in August or September before Julie got all this presented to us.
Okay, just take away everything I said. Why do we have that meeting then?
To help, at least for us on our end, was because the board didn't like the formula that we were currently using. So we were redoing the formula to adjust for pricing.
Get that. Without that picture.
So we had, this is our fourth budget meeting, so August, program manager. Any formulas, because the budget and the formulas weren't matching up.
I don't
For
understand
September.
how I'm not communicating this very
Can
well.
you just give me a second? In September, we actually had a meeting for our workshop to go over it and so then it was postponed and the program committee again was at halt, we couldn't do anything. So we come to October, we have a meeting, and then we're on our third or fourth meeting in November. So we're exhausted as far as doing the budget review. It's been noted that it should have been done sooner. May, going back, we have a new board, we're playing catch up. August, then we have delayed meetings. The timeline is not typical of what usually our commission meeting is. So we're hoping that in 2025, we have a better sense of when our budget committee meetings are. And that will help us with the levy and do the projections as a membership request.
Really was able to take that information and kind of put it all together and say, okay, well, this program needs this much and this program needs this much. And that's how she came out with
I think that's
the
reflected.
$20.
Maybe.
The administrative fee and the lane fee. That's how we came up with that. So we were at 17. Now, after she took all those numbers, she was able to say, okay, well, 20 is a better number. And I think we even talked about that. We talked about it at the chamber. I think it was a regular meeting.
Correct.
We did get to a 20.
So we're gonna figure out.
That was the meeting after that. Oh, no, that was after that. So that was based on the feedback of that information that she talked about. And then now tonight, Jake mentioned, we did go over and kind of look at something with that 20 number in there. So I think there's
Just a lot of catch up as far as getting our new.
I don't see how, I think I do understand what you're saying, but I don't know how we would put that. We would add a column on the budget to say,
I think I just wanted to see what we
Yeah.
came up with, because we were just shooting from the hip.
yeah,
We weren't
it's not, it did come up, I think.
last week.
Well, the $20 didn't really cut. I know that this group feels like it came from the hip because
No, it
there's so many new, but the $20 was actually based on costs we had done.
Not what I'm saying. When we went through, we were shooting from the hip. We were making
All that.
we were making off the cuff decisions. And I think overall, I would just like to see what that turned out looking like. What those totals were and how they plan. Because I understand that they are factoring in here somewhere, but I'm missing a key.
The answer is TBD. We gotta wait till December
Why? It's already done.
because program committee still has to discuss that and then present it to us in December for a vote.
Right. I want to see what we came up with.
Do you mean like the final document?
No, I think she wants a breakdown of,
Levy versus not levy.
yeah, so if we're looking at kind of our expenses here, for instance, of, water fitness daily admission, right? What percentage of that are we spending from the levy? And what percentage of that is the cost share from folks? Like, and broken down line by line, she wants, because we did that line by line, so I think that,
Yeah, I just want to see what it looked like.
So it's caution versus.
Maybe that's
Yeah,
something you
cost
can
share
ask
versus levy.
Springbrook if they
Yeah,
can.
maybe, because the logistics of that program by program, Springbrook might be able to create a report that will do that. Otherwise, it would be doing essentially, I believe, a program sheet on repeat, plugging in actuals.
Because that percentage is gonna change for each program. Specified that we wanted that.
I did update, and now with those changes that were made tonight, that can affect that calculation downward some potentially. Because I did plug in the proposed 2025 numbers prior to our program meeting tonight to try and be as up to date with those as possible. Because that admin lane hour charge, that's going to have to adjust annually with the budget because it's tied to the budget and operating hours.
I would just like to, agree with Commissioner Guy. At the earliest time next year, we need to set down what the, budget schedule is gonna look like, and then we need to adhere to that. I've been a member of a number of different governmental boards with it's far larger than this one. And the level of the last few months has been unprecedented. Better, and we will.
My only comment is I just want to thank Shane for your work you've done over the past few years as you venture onto your new journey.
Thank you for that. You know, I truly love this place and, thank you all for stepping in and saving it. It was a hell of a piece of teamwork.
Next meeting is on Thursday, November 21st, 6 p.m. at the Chamber of Commerce. Motion to be motion to be.
No, wait, just adjourn.
Meeting adjourned at 7:50.